Hello and welcome. I'm Anand Naidu, sitting in for Riz Khan. Has Pakistan's blasphemy law become a political tool in the hands of religious conservatives? The controversial legislation hands down the death penalty to anyone convicted of insulting the Prophet Muhammad. Some critics want the law scrapped, saying it's become heavily politicized and is also used to persecute liberals and religious minorities. But supporters have taken to the streets defending the blasphemy law, saying it is an integral part of Pakistan's religious ethos. The bitter and often angry debate turned deadly last month when the governor of Punjab province, Salman Taseer, was shot dead by his security guard. Taseer was an outspoken critic of the blasphemy law, and his assassin, Mumtaz Qadri, said he killed the governor for his position. Today we ask, does the blasphemy law have a place in today's Pakistan? Remember, you can send us an SMS or email with your questions and comments on the show. Joining us now from Lahore is journalist and writer Shabana Taseer. She is the daughter of the assassinated Governor Salman Taseer. We also have Dr. Amjad Waheed, who teaches Islamic thought and civilization at the University of Management and Technology in Lahore. And with us from Islamabad is well-known human rights activist Asma Jahangar. She is also president of Pakistan's Supreme Court Bar Association. Welcome to all of you to the show. Asma Jahangar, let me start with you. I was wondering if you'd give us some idea of the scope of this law, because we recently heard that even a schoolboy who wrote something which was deemed objectionable during an examination was questioned by the authorities. So how widely defined is this law?
You know, it has a huge intimidating effect, and the victims are large enough. You said that this is being used now as a tool to oppress liberal Muslims, and in fact also people of other sects that you don't agree with. But the reason why it was precisely put into law was to provide a tool to these people. After all, this came into law by Ziaul Haq. Before that also we were a country where 95% of the Muslims lived, and there was not this issue of people being arrested, people who were mentally disturbed, young children, a 14-year-old boy whose case I did, where the orthodoxy almost ripped the High Court apart. And I think that they feel that these decisions should be taken in the streets. And that is why a number of people who have simply been accused have been killed. And Salman Taseer's case is one in point, where he did not even say anything against the Holy Prophet, never dreamt of saying anything. He was talking about the misuse of the law, and he was shot dead. I mean, this is the prime example of how this law is being used to persecute people who will not follow a rigid, very militant Islamic agenda here.
Okay, let's go to Shabana Taseer. Shabana, you are the daughter of the governor of Punjab province, the man who was the governor of Punjab province, Salman Taseer. He was killed violently. He was shot dead by one of his security guards. I want to ask you a question about how you feel about Pakistan right now. But first, I want you to listen to what the lawyer for the man who confessed to killing your father had to say. This is Mumtaz Qadri, the confessed assassin of Salman Taseer. This is what he said in his testimony in court. Let's listen.
And when judge asked him that has he claimed any innocent life, he replied that no, with a very force. He said that no, we have not, I have not claimed any innocent life. Instead, that person was an apostate, as he has committed blasphemy. So a person who commits blasphemy goes out of the parameters of Islam. He was an apostate, and he acted as it is prescribed in Quran and Sunnah.
Mr. Shabana, the question is, how do you feel about Pakistan right now and the road down which the country is going? Does it make you feel bitter?
I don't feel bitter. I'm very positive about the future of Pakistan. We have a lot on our side. But something that is a concern for me is how poisonous the atmosphere has become. And it's been allowed to become like this because the state has abdicated its responsibilities in certain areas. The madrasa system, it's being allowed to spew venom and hatred and intolerance. And you know, they're brainwashing children, and they're teaching their own distorted version of Islam and the Quran. And you know, they're brainwashing the children of today to feel like their only contribution to Islam is jihad, and that they that they are perfectly justified in taking the law into their own hands in vigilantism.
Now, many people will take objection to what you've just said there on television. Do you fear for your own life? I understand that you had to come to the studio today accompanied by an armed guard.
I mean, there's obviously a very real security threat. This is not just any murder. It was a very high-profile murder of the governor of the most populous province in Pakistan. So if you're asking me if there's a security threat, then yes, there is a huge security threat. But if you're asking me whether I live in fear, then no. I think that it's a claustrophobic existence, and it's a choice that one makes. And you know, I don't want to live in fear. I choose not to live in fear.
Okay, let's go to Amjad Waheed. He's also in Lahore there in Pakistan. Mr. Waheed, does Pakistan need a law? Isn't it very divisive, this law that we're seeing there? And doesn't it really violate freedom of speech? And one other aspect of this law, as we've just seen, as we've just heard from Shabana Taseer there, is that she has to be accompanied by an armed guard. That is what this law has done.
While we are talking about the internal dynamics of the Pakistani culture, I think it's not fair to label anything or any person as liberal, as secular, as conservative, as fanatic, or religious conservatives. These terms, it isn't fair to fix someone or something in a formulated phrase, because it's not true in the Pakistani culture. When we talk about Salman Taseer or when we talk about Mumtaz Qadri, in both the personalities, when we discuss about this issue, that Salman Taseer, his father, Mr. M.D. Taseer, has a religious background. Salman Taseer, his upbringing is a socialist upbringing. Salman Taseer, his recent past is a modernist recent past.
I'm asking you,
he left this world with a postmodern vision.
I'm asking you about whether Pakistan needs a law like this. As we can see, this law is causing a lot of fear. It's causing a lot of divisiveness in Pakistan.
As a conservative Muslim or as a fanatic, all these things are not possible within the Pakistani culture. This is the first point. While we talk about this issue straightly, the matter is that this is not the issue or difference of the ideological differences in Pakistan. It's not the issue of the differences of the liberals and conservatives in Pakistan. This issue is directly related to the popular sentiments of the people of Pakistan, and it is, we must and we need it to read the writings on the wall and to feel the pulses of the people. Then we will be able to really reconsider this issue in the light of the feelings of the popular masses.
Okay,
and
sir.
While we talk about the sentiments of the popular masses, we will.
Okay, so let me go to Asma Jahangir. Asma Jahangir, we heard that this law reflects the popular sentiments of the Pakistani people. Is there any way of knowing how much support there is for this blasphemy law in Pakistan?
I think when there is an atmosphere of fear, it is very difficult to assess anything. But let me say that let us have this discussion in the framework that I don't think there's anybody in Pakistan, including Sherwano and myself, who believe that people should go around being abusive about our own religion, leave alone our own religion, about any other religion. We don't believe in that. We don't believe in demonizing religious personalities. But here we are talking about a legislation which is also worded very, very loosely, which says directly or indirectly. It doesn't look at intention and the kind of emotions that are stirred every time somebody is accused. So there may be a popular sentiment amongst those people and their followers who want to use this law to intimidate us and put us in fear, certainly. And can you imagine the children of all the minorities that I know in this country live under utter fear. They are so afraid that once their children go out of their homes, that they don't tear a paper, they don't throw a paper, they don't talk to anyone. And yet we are trying to justify it in the name of justice and in the name of a religion that preaches justice. I don't see the logic of it.
Shabana, as we've just heard there, this law is being misused in many instances. It's being used to target minorities, as some people allege. Critics of the law say that is what is happening. They also say that it's being used to settle personal scores by some individuals who just invoke this law when they don't like somebody. Now, you've done some research on how this law is being misused. You're a journalist yourself. What have you found?
Look, I feel like a law is there to protect. It's not there to persecute. And you know, in my research, I've seen that there have been about 480 cases since 1986, since the year that this law was introduced. There have been 480 cases against Muslims. There have been 350 cases against Ahmadis. There have been 120 against Christians. You know, 35 against Hindus, 10 others, and then 40 have been mowed down by vigilantes. And just since January 4th, which was the date that my father, Shaheed Salman Taseer, was assassinated, there have been 9 cases of blasphemy, 9 known cases of blasphemy. So I think that a law, no matter what law it is, it should be, it's there to protect people.
Amjad Wahid, how do you respond to those criticisms that the law is being used to target minorities to settle personal scores? How do you respond to that?
The issue of the misusing this law, when we go to the statistics, we can say that more than half of the victims of this law, as you call it, they are Muslims, not the minorities. This issue is not related to the issue of minorities. This issue is in fact an issue of the balance between the unrestricted and unlimited freedom of expression and the religious sentiments. Only this law can create a balance between these two things. While we talk about the misuse of this law, now we have an independent judiciary in Pakistan, we have a democratic government in Pakistan. It isn't possible to misuse the laws in the presence of an independent judiciary and in the presence of a democratic government in the Pakistan.
Okay, Asma Jahangar, do you agree with that? It isn't possible to misuse that law in Pakistan?
Absolutely. I would say this is not a statement that is realistic in the least. First of all, if that was the case, Mr. Salman Taseer's trial, and mind you, he is not accused of having committed blasphemy. Let me make that absolutely clear. His trial of his murder, where a person has confessed to murder, is being held in the premises of the jail. It was difficult for the government to get a public prosecutor. And a number of people have been killed. My own client once was killed while he was standing outside the court. People have been killed inside the jails. Nothing has happened, no inquiry has been held. There are judges who have refused to take these cases on. So if you talk about a democratic system, well, there is a democratic system, but they are too scared and they are too fragile. They did not own up, and they did not even act swiftly at the assassination of their own governor. So because at this point of time, this law is being, I am sorry to say, misused by those people who have an agenda of putting people under fear of persecuting not only religious minorities but also Muslims who think differently, have a different ideological, political ideology to them. Not that people who think differently want to, God forbid, disrespect the Holy Prophet. That is not the case, and that is not the issue in our country. Nobody is doing it in those numbers. Most of the cases, if you look at them, they themselves tell you that people who eventually go to court, if they are not murdered, are acquitted. But what do they go through? They go through periods of fear, and their families have to move, and some of them just end up either leaving the country. Most of them who have been acquitted have not been able to stay in this country.
Okay, we've just received an email on this particular subject. This email comes from Manur Bari, who writes to us from Pakistan. Amjad Wahid, this email is addressed to you. And Manur Bari writes, the blasphemy law seems unnecessary in a country with a 98% Muslim population. It is clearly there to discriminate against minorities and secular thinkers and creates the atmosphere of a police state in Pakistan. Amjad Wahid, do you want to respond to that?
I have already discussed about this issue, that it is an issue related to the minorities. Statistics justify this, while the condition of the democratic development in Pakistan and condition of the independence of the judiciary, we cannot make the murder of some dignitary as an evidence against this. We have murders of dignitaries in America. We have the murder of Kennedy, the President of America. It doesn't mean that there was no development, democratic development in United States, and there was no independent judiciary in United States. As a nation, we are very optimistic. We are on right track now. We are on the way of democracy. We are on the way of an independent judiciary, and it isn't possible to discriminate the minorities in the presence of independent judiciary and a democratic government.
Shabana, we've been hearing there about an independent judiciary in Pakistan, also about democracy in Pakistan. How do you feel, when you see and hear that people have actually been celebrating your father's death in Pakistan?
Obviously, it came as a huge shock to me. It's never easy to see. It wasn't easy to see that. But I think something that really shook me was that there were so many lawyers celebrating this murder and celebrating the fact that this man had taken the law into his own hands. So that kind of went against their very profession, I thought. But these men, and I've written about this, these men are supposed to be the vanguards of justice in Pakistan. So if they take these kinds of stands and if they behave like this, then I really worry that, I worry about just how free the judiciary is.
Asma Jahangar received...
And whether extremism has... Sorry. No, it's okay.
Okay. Asma Jahangar, we just received another email here. This is from Abdullah Khan. He sent us this email via Facebook, and he writes, the blasphemy law is clearly stated in the Quran. It can never be removed from the Constitution, but only needs to be implemented properly. How would you respond to that?
Well, yes. I don't know that I'm not an Islamic scholar, but I have heard Islamic scholars also differ about this. I am a lawyer, and let me tell you that this law was only made in 1986. So before that, we did not have this law. And secondly, when people were talking about misuse of it, for example, the present government never even talked, never addressed vaguely, directly or indirectly, the repeal of it. What was slightly touched upon was to alter it so that misuse is stopped. But there were people on the street saying, no, you cannot even change the misuse. The message is, we can kill whom we like on the pretext of this law. We can intimidate whom we like, carrying this law with us, and you can do nothing about it. The parliament can do nothing about it. Once you've made it, that's it. And that is why when I was a UN rapporteur on freedom of religion or belief, I used to constantly write that once you make a law in the name of religion, and this has happened even in the mature democracies, it's very difficult to change it. And secondly, wherever these laws have existed, there has been tension rather than harmony.
You say it's very difficult to change it. Attempts have been made. We have a Pakistani member of parliament, Sherry Rehman, who tried to get this law reformed. She's subsequently dropped her efforts to get this law changed after she was threatened herself. So do you think the law is going to stay the same way on the statute books in Pakistan as it is, or do you have any hope that it might be changed in the future? I mean, one of the things that people are looking at is perhaps leaving the law as it is on the statute books, but then putting in amendments that would make it difficult to abuse the law.
No, I think that there's something will have to be done so that the law is not abused. And once this climate, which has been built, I think, and pre-planned and done for political reason as well, when this climate subsides, people will begin to see the sense of it. And one day when, God forbid, somebody is arrested under this law for completely distorted version of it, and that person happens to be from more conservative side of politics, then I think the penny will drop.
Shabana, do you think that the death of your father will make it more difficult for people to campaign against this law? I mean, we're seeing so many threats against people like Sherry Rehman who try to get this law changed.
There were previous attempts to. In 2005, Musharraf tried to water down the law as well, and he gave in to right-wing pressure. I think that my father's assassination has definitely left, there's an atmosphere of fear in Pakistan now, but I feel that as Pakistanis, we don't have that luxury anymore. We don't have that choice of staying silent and being scared. I think that it's, the buck stops here, and we have to think about where we want Pakistan to go from now, and if we're going to just hand it over to the extremists so easily by being scared and staying silent.
Amjad Waheed, is it likely that this law and the murder of Salman Taseer will polarize Pakistani society, will create bigger divisions, especially between conservatives, the religious conservatives on the one side, and liberals on the other?
I think it's the wrong projection of this issue. There is no split in Pakistani masses. This is just a projection of a few. Only a few scholars are projecting this issue in this way. There is no split of liberals and conservatives in Pakistan. It is against the temperament of the Pakistani to fix them into a formulated phrase. The phrase like liberal or phrase like secular, it isn't possible here in Pakistan, because Pakistan is a place, it is a meeting point of so many cultures, and it is also the departure point of so many cultures. It was a Buddhist dominated area before the advent of the Arabs. Then Arab came. After the Arabs, Turks came here. Then we have the invasion of the British regime here. Then the return of the British. That was a departure of a culture from this area. All the cultures, all the religions have their influences on this land, and in such a land it isn't possible to fix someone in a formulated phrase.
Okay, Shabana, I'm going to give you the last word on this. We've just heard there that there are no divisions in Pakistan, that it's against, as Amjad Waheed told us, against the temperament of the Pakistani people.
As there would be in any society, in any country, there are quite obviously divisions. But I think that it's not just so black and white as people have portrayed it to be. It's not just a few versus these 50,000 extremists who take to the streets and things, because it was about 40,000 of them at a rally in a city of 17 million. So I think that there are a lot of moderates in Pakistan, but I feel, like I've said already, that there's an atmosphere of fear. So it's stopped a lot of these people from speaking out.
Okay, we still have a minute left. Let me go to Asma Jahinga. Asma Jahinga, what is the way forward from here?
Well, first of all, I think that, we have to address this issue more seriously in an atmosphere where people begin to sit back and look at it in the sense of protecting people. Secondly, it is not just this law. There's a larger issue here. We have become like rat heads. Do you know that in our country, people used to take their children to a saint and they used to put an iron cap on their heads so that it just didn't grow. We need to take that iron cap off, and we need to breathe, not ourselves, but let our minds breathe as well. And so we need to go forward. We need to go forward, and with the idea of giving people justice, with the idea of non-discrimination, with the idea also that those sections of society that incite people to violence must be brought to book. And this is what our government has not done so far.
Okay, that's where we're going to have to leave it. Thanks to all of you for being with us, and thank you for watching the show. Remember, you can follow the show on Facebook and see what we're up to there. You can give us your feedback on the show and post your questions and comments. From me and the team in Washington, D.C., see you next time.